"You've been quiet lately." That's what she said to me, her voice casual, almost rehearsed. Not the worried tone of a wife sensing distance, but the awkward guilt of someone who knows why the silence exists and fears what might come next. "My name's David Mercer. I'm 51 years old and I built Mercer Steel from scratch. Bare hands, sleepless years, and more setbacks than I could count. What I didn't know until that spring was that, while I was busy building a business, the two people I trusted most were busy dismantling the rest of my life behind my back. For 15 years I was married to Lisa. We met in our 20s, back when I still hauled welding gear in the bed of a borrowed truck and lived on instant coffee and quarter-tank gas. She saw me when I had nothing. I thought that meant she'd stand by me when I had everything. I was wrong. And then there was Jason Grant, my best friend since my late 20s. He was the guy who helped me land my first six-figure contract, the guy who flew across the country when my mom passed, just to hold the damn clipboard while I gave a shaky eulogy. My business partner, my fishing buddy, godfather to my daughter, and the man who eventually found his way into my wife's bed. It started with the little things. Lisa's phone started living face down on the table. She started wearing perfume to girls' night again. Her laugh changed, not louder, just lighter, looser, like it came from somewhere further away. When she did look me in the eyes, it was like she was squinting through something. Guilt or distance, maybe both. I was working long hours trying to land the Holloway deal, a 5-year contract that would put Mercer Steel in the top 3 in our state. Jason was in the thick of it too, coordinating subcontractors and pushing city permits through red tape like a wizard. That job should have pulled us closer. Instead, it gave them cover. There's something almost insulting about how clean betrayal looks from the outside. No screaming, no obvious mess, just two people who suddenly have inside jokes you're not part of. Two phones that light up at the same time. Two glances that linger a moment too long. I tried to ignore it, because that's what men like me do. We grind, we build, we don't imagine our lives falling apart. We explain things away. I even told myself I was being paranoid. I figured maybe Lisa was feeling distant because I'd been pulling 80-hour weeks, trying to secure our future. Maybe Jason was just being the friend he'd always been, stepping in where I was falling short. But the knot in my gut never loosened. Not even when Lisa told me she was going to visit her sister in Salem for a long weekend. Not even when Jason called me that Friday to say he was out of town for a couple days on a hunting trip. Something about the timing felt too perfect. Still, I let it slide. Until Sunday night, Lisa came home looking different, relaxed, almost glowing. She said the trip was exactly what she needed, then disappeared into the bedroom before I could ask what they'd actually done. I watched her toss her weekend bag onto the bed, then slip her phone into the drawer like it was a bomb she couldn't risk me touching. It was around midnight when I heard the buzz, a faint, muffled vibration from her nightstand drawer. She was asleep and something in me said, "Check it now." I opened the drawer and pulled the phone out gently. No lock screen. She must have forgotten. Or maybe she still believed I was the kind of man who would never look. The message read, "Can't stop thinking about this weekend. You're incredible, Jay." I stared at it. I didn't feel rage, not yet, not grief either. What I felt was something sharper, clarity. Like a fog I didn't know I was walking through had suddenly cleared. I knew now. It wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was fact. Final. Absolute. The next morning I didn't mention the text. I went to work like nothing had changed. Jason swung by the site that afternoon, all business, talking timelines and subcontractor issues and payroll projections. I looked him in the eye and nodded at all the right times. I even bought us both lunch, chicken burritos, just like old times. He ate his with a smile. That night, I pulled out a file I hadn't looked at in over a decade, our company's original partnership agreement. The last 5 pages were the ones I cared about. I found what I was looking for in bold. Clause 14.2, conduct detrimental to business reputation. It had been Jason's idea to add it, ironically, meant to protect us from scandal, lawsuits, or fraud. We'd never thought it would protect us from each other. By Wednesday, I had the lawyer on the phone, Michael Cortez, sharp, discreet, ruthless when necessary. "Can you activate Clause 14? 2 if the conduct's personal but might impact business trust?" He didn't hesitate. "If you can prove a connection between the affair and workplace breakdown, or show reputational risk, yes, especially in this state." I smiled for the first time in days. Then let's begin. I gave Lisa space for the next week. I was polite, helpful even. I brought home dinner, folded laundry. I didn't raise my voice or ask questions. She probably thought I was calming down, that I hadn't seen the text, that maybe the guilt would pass and we'd slide back into normal. She didn't know I was documenting everything. I set up a security camera in my home office, motion activated, triggered when doors opened. I reviewed logs of Jason entering our house while I was on job sites. I ran phone records. I found 36 late-night calls that lasted over 45 minutes each. I even pulled GPS data from her car, tracing trips she'd never mentioned. By the end of the second week, I had a folder as thick as my palm. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was logistical, strategic, pre-planned. I sat down with my lawyer again, this time in person. Michael paged through the file like a man reviewing a chessboard before making the final move. "This is more than enough," he said. I nodded. "I don't want this to go to court, not if I can help it. I want clean removal. Control of the company, and I want both of them out of my life permanently." "You'll have to confront him eventually," Michael said. "I know," I said. "I want to do it in the office, face to face, where the deal was built." He looked at me for a long moment. "You've changed," he said finally. I shrugged. "No, I just finally know who I'm dealing with." When Jason walked into my office that Thursday evening, he looked like nothing had changed. He had a folder in his hand, a coffee in the other. He smiled like we were just two old friends still climbing the mountain together. "Got the payroll summaries," he said, setting them down. "Think we can push the Holloway crew into overtime next week?" I stared at him. Then I slid the manila envelope across the desk. "What's this?" "Your exit," I said. He opened it, read the first page, and froze. His smile fell like a dropped mask. "What the hell is this, Dave?" Clause 14.2. "You breached trust. You're out. I'm buying your shares at the protected rate." "You can't be serious." I said nothing. Jason stood, gripping the folder like it might bite him. "This is a personal matter. Not business. You can't—" "You made it business the moment you stepped into my house behind my back," I said quietly. "You lied. You betrayed. You built your life on what we created. Now it's over. You'll sign the papers, or we go public. Your call." He stared at me, no apology, no regret. Just rage. "You're a bastard," he said finally. "No," I said, leaning back. "I'm the bastard who trusted the wrong people for too long. Now I'm fixing it." Jason didn't sign that night. He left the office in silence, but his eyes said everything. Shock, hate, fear too. The kind of fear men feel when they realize they just walked into a room unarmed and the other guy's been loading the gun for weeks. I stayed late, cleaned out the bourbon from the top drawer, and sat in the quiet hum of the office lights. The place Jason and I built from the ground up. 10 years of contracts, late nights, and power plays. I'd have burned it to the ground if it meant getting rid of him. But I didn't need fire. I had the contract. The next morning I found Lisa in the kitchen, already dressed, coffee in hand. She wore the necklace Jason gave her last Christmas, the one she said was from a coworker's wife. I hadn't believed her then. Now I knew. She looked at me carefully like she was trying to read my mood. "You're up early." "Didn't sleep much," I said, pouring my coffee. "Everything okay at work?" I smiled. "Actually, everything's moving along." She nodded, stirring her cup. "I was thinking we could go away, just us. Get out of town, clear the air." The audacity made my chest tighten, not with pain but with disbelief. She thought I didn't know. Or worse, she knew I did and was testing how much I'd tolerate. I took a sip and said, "I've got meetings this week, maybe next month." She looked disappointed, but not surprised. The game was on and she didn't know I was already 5 moves ahead. I gave Jason 48 hours. During that time, I put my legal team on standby. We began preparing a formal complaint to the board, should he resist signing the buyout. I also had our IT lead secure every system. I wasn't taking chances, not with a man who had access to our finances and vendors. On the second day, Jason walked in just before lunch. His face was pale, eyes sunken, like a man who'd spent the last 48 hours arguing with himself and losing. "You're really going through with this?" "I am," I said. He sat down. No folder, no attitude. Just a tired man sitting across from someone he used to call brother. "You know I could fight this." "You could," I replied, "but I've got evidence, phone logs, GPS, internal policies. Your face on a dozen security cameras entering my home during business hours." You'd lose and your name would go with it. He looked down, jaw tightening. I didn't plan for it to happen. You don't have to explain it to me, I cut in. You already explained it to her. He looked at me then, and for a moment I saw the guy I used to know. Not the man who lied, but the man who once helped me carry a broken generator 3 blocks when our first shop lost power in winter. But that guy was gone. Sign it, Jason, I said. You walk away with something. Don't push me to take everything. He stared at the pen I placed on the table. And he signed. 2 hours later, my lawyer filed the official transfer documents. Jason's 25% stake now belonged to me, at the reduced rate stated in our agreement. On paper, I gained millions. But what I felt wasn't victory. Not yet, because Lisa was still in our home, still sleeping in our bed, still looking me in the eye with the quiet confidence of someone who thought she hadn't been caught. But she had been, and I hadn't even started on her yet. That night I made dinner. Her favorite, garlic lemon salmon, roasted asparagus, and a glass of white wine chilled to her exact liking. I set the table with candles, real silverware, cloth napkins. The kind of evening I hadn't orchestrated in years. She came downstairs wearing a soft black dress, confusion flickering behind her eyes. What's all this? I smiled. Just felt like celebrating. She blinked, searching for the lie. Celebrating what? Closure, I said. Dinner went smoothly. Too smoothly. She laughed at the right times, touched my hand once, maybe twice. I even told her I'd be taking a few days off work. You deserve that, she said, her voice warm. Afterward, she leaned in to kiss me. I let her. Not out of love, not even hate, just strategy. I needed her to think the storm had passed until it hit. At midnight, when she was asleep, I opened the safe. Inside was a folder labeled prenup. Lisa and I signed the agreement 2 weeks before our wedding. Her father was a financial planner, the kind of man who didn't believe in sentiment without legal structure. I had no objections. At the time, I had nothing but a rented house and a used pickup truck. It felt like security for both of us. But I added one clause of my own. Infidelity nullifies all community property claims. If either party cheats, the other walks away with everything acquired during the marriage. Her father didn't object. If she cheats, she deserves nothing, he'd said. I doubt Lisa even remembered that part. But I did, and my lawyer confirmed it was still ironclad. By Friday, I was ready. She was in the living room scrolling through her phone when I dropped the folder on the coffee table. She looked up, puzzled. What's this? Your copy of the divorce filing, I said. And the prenup. Her face changed, slowly at first, then all at once. What? You broke the contract, Lisa. You cheated. So you forfeit everything we built. The house. The cars, the accounts, it's all mine. You're bluffing, she snapped, but her voice cracked. Read the clause. She did. Twice. Her hands started shaking. You can't do this. I'm not doing anything. I'm just enforcing what you signed. Like we agreed. Tears welled in her eyes, but I saw something behind them. Fear. The real kind. The kind that comes when someone realizes the safety net's gone. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, reaching for me. I stepped back. You didn't mean to get caught. She looked around the house like she was seeing it for the last time. The marble kitchen she picked. The living room we remodeled. The photos on the wall of trips we'd taken. Photos she'd sent to Jason the same nights I thought we were reconnecting. This doesn't have to end like this, she whispered. But it already had. I gave her 1 week to leave the house. Offered her a clean severance. A small settlement, enough to rent a place, cover a car, and move on. Not enough to live luxuriously. Not enough to share with Jason. She took it, or rather, she had no choice. That weekend I met with Holloway Construction. Over drinks and cigars, I explained the transition at Mercer Steel. I made sure the partners knew everything was in place, without naming names. They reassured me their loyalty was with me, not the paper logo. By Monday, the company was leaner, quieter, and entirely mine. Lisa was gone. Jason had gone dark, and I wasn't done yet. Well, before we continue, if you're enjoying this story and love such dramas, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Every new subscriber keeps me motivated to dig deeper, uncover more wild stories, and bring you even crazier content. Your support means everything. It's what keeps this channel going strong. And trust me, there's plenty more chaos coming your way. Back to the story. Lisa moved out the following Thursday. I watched from the upstairs window as she closed the trunk of her car, eyes red, movements slow. She didn't look up, not once. Just climbed in and drove off like she was trying to disappear. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel triumph either, just the hollow quiet of a man who'd finally carved rot out of his home and was still standing in the silence it left behind. But I wasn't done. Lisa might have been gone. Jason might have signed the papers. But damage doesn't just vanish when the threat leaves. It lingers in the boardrooms, in vendor meetings, in the whispers that follow your name. And Jason had done more than sleep with my wife. He'd mishandled invoices, misused corporate credit cards, and after I had my accounting team quietly dig through 3 years of financial reports, the picture got ugly fast. $94,000, my CFO said, laying out the reports on my desk. That's just what we can prove so far. Mostly travel, client dinners that never happened, gift expenses billed through fake vendors. He covered his tracks, but not well. I stared at the total, jaw set. He funneled it through operations, mostly. Some of it through marketing. A few shell line items labeled logistics overflow. We wouldn't have caught it if we weren't looking. I leaned back in my chair. Jason hadn't just taken my trust. He'd skimmed from the same engine we built together and used the funds to impress the woman I married. Run a full audit, I said, quietly. If anything else turns up, I want it ready for the DA. You think you'll need to go that far? I don't know, I said. But I'm not making that decision today. Jason is. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went to the lake. Just me, a cooler of beer, and the aluminum boat I'd been ignoring in the garage since the start of the Holloway contract. It was a cool Saturday morning just after sunrise. The water was still. Fog hung like a blanket over the surface. It felt like being somewhere untouched, like betrayal and rage didn't exist here. I stayed out for 5 hours, no calls, no emails, just silence and breath. Then I turned my phone back on. 12 missed calls, 6 voicemails, all from Jason. I listened to the last one. Dave, man, I didn't know about the clause. I didn't think it would go this far. Just give me a chance to make this right. Please. The panic in his voice was almost comical, like he'd just realized the wreckage he'd caused had a price tag. And I hadn't even told him about the audit yet. On Monday, I called a meeting, not with Jason, with our attorney. Michael came into my office with his usual calm, sharp-eyed professionalism. I assume this is about the expense reports, he asked, taking a seat. It is. I want a plan. He opened his laptop. You've got 2 options, he said. Option 1, we file criminal charges, embezzlement, fraud, possibly wire fraud depending on how he routed the reimbursements. It'll be public, ugly, but airtight. And option 2, you give him a choice. Sign a full confession, pay restitution, and accept permanent severance. In exchange, we don't press charges. Leverage over prosecution, I said. Exactly. And if he refuses, Michael leaned forward, then we destroy him, legally. That night, I sent Jason a message. We need to meet. Thursday, 7 p.m. My office. Don't be late. No signature, just cold clarity. He replied within minutes. I'll be there. Lisa texted me that same evening, first time since the divorce filing. Lisa, I heard you forced Jason out. What's going on, me? You'll have to ask him. Lisa, you're taking this too far, Dave. This isn't who you are. I didn't reply. She didn't get to define who I was anymore. Thursday came. Jason arrived 5 minutes early. He looked worse than last time, sleepless, unshaven, twitchy. You said you wanted to meet, he said, stepping into the office like it might collapse around him. I did, I replied. Sit, he did. I slid another envelope across the table. Read, he opened it, scanned the contents, stopped halfway, looked up. This is an audit. Yes. It says I owe $94,000. That's the baseline, I said. More could turn up. He leaned back, blowing out a breath. You're gonna press charges. That depends on you, I said. If you sign the confession and pay back every cent, plus a severance agreement barring you from any future claims or contact, you walk away, quietly. No court, no headlines. And if I don't, I didn't answer, just stared. After a long moment, he looked back down at the papers. You really planned all this? No, I said. I reacted. That's the difference. He was quiet for a while. Then finally, he signed. 3 days later, the transfer was complete. Jason's access to everything was revoked. His email was deleted. His credentials erased. He was gone from Mercer Steel like he'd never existed, and me, I had control again. But I didn't feel done, because revenge is never just about payback, it's about power, and keeping it. The following week, I scheduled a lunch with Kevin Holloway, CEO of the Holloway Construction Group. We met at a steakhouse on 3rd, the kind where million-dollar handshakes happen before dessert. I heard about Jason, Kevin said as we sat down. Everything okay on your end? I smiled. Better than okay, he nodded. We've always liked working with you, Dave. Not the name. You. That's good to hear, I said, swirling my glass. Because I'm thinking of selling. Kevin blinked. Selling Mercer, possibly. Not publicly, not yet. But the right buyer, the right terms, I'd consider it. He looked thoughtful. Well, if that ever becomes official, Drift Rock's expanding. Their equipment division's weak. They'd pay big to absorb someone like you. Let me think on it, I said, and I did. Because Jason had cost me time, peace, and trust. But if I played this next part right, he wouldn't just lose me. He'd watch as the empire we built got bought out for millions, and realize he gave up his stake for pennies. That would be the move, the one that ruined both their lives in just one stroke. 2 weeks after Jason signed the confession, Mercer Steel was quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that only comes when the rot has been cut out, but the foundation still smells like betrayal. I buried myself in the work, rebuilt trust with the vendors, walked the job sites, shook hands, made calls, led meetings. Everything Jason used to do with me, I now did alone. And oddly, it felt lighter. Lisa hadn't reached out since the last message. I wasn't surprised. The money was gone. The safety was gone. Jason was gone, what was left to reach for, but I wasn't done with her either. My attorney Michael called me one morning after reviewing final divorce documentation. There's something she doesn't know, he said. I sat up straighter at my desk. Go on. Turns out she's already in violation of the prenup again. I frowned. How? She's cohabitating with Jason. That violates Section 8.3 of the agreement. Remember, you added it after your father's estate fight, the clause that says if a party cohabitates with the affair partner before divorce finalization, they forfeit any secondary claim. I had forgotten. But suddenly, I felt the air sharpen. What does that mean for her settlement? It means we can freeze it. Do it. I didn't reach out to Lisa. She found out the hard way at her bank. 3 days later, I got a message. Lisa. Why is my settlement account frozen? I stared at it, didn't reply. A few minutes later, Lisa. Is this because I'm staying at Jason's? That's temporary. I needed a place to stay still. I said nothing. Then came the guilt card. Lisa. This is petty, Dave. I'm still the mother of your child. Finally, I replied, me. Our child is 22. He's a man. And so am I. She didn't message again. The Holloway project broke ground that month. Kevin invited me to the ribbon cutting, a ceremony they turned into a local press event. Suits, photographers, even a drone crew to shoot footage for their website. That's where the Drift Rock CEO found me. He introduced himself, Graham Ward, tall, polished, the kind of executive who used words like synergy without irony. He didn't waste time. I've seen what you built, Mr. Mercer, he said. We're expanding. You ever consider a merger or an acquisition? I'm listening. He gave me a number. It made my chest tighten, not with dread, but with disbelief. They were offering $16.8 million for everything. That night, I stood in my garage, staring at the same metal toolbox I'd had since I was 23. I ran my hand across the dented lid. Still had a scratch on it from when Jason dropped it down a staircase in '06. He never paid for that either. Now he had. And I wasn't done. The next morning, I had my team pull together all the contracts, all the revenue reports, all the vendor accounts. I ran a silent audit on everything I'd just spent 15 years building. If I was going to sell Mercer Steel, it wasn't going to be just a check. It would be a statement. So I crafted a deal, tight, clean, and final. Drift Rock would buy out the company and retain me for 2 years as division president. After that, I could walk with full payout, non-compete waived, and personal client transfer bonuses. I didn't even send it to Jason. He found out through the industry whisper network. 2 weeks later, he showed up, not at my office, at my home. He rang the doorbell like a stranger, like he didn't used to walk in without knocking. I answered the door in my flannel and jeans, just back from hauling scrap out of the old yard. What do you want? You're selling it. I didn't answer. He stepped closer. For almost $17 million. I let the silence confirm it. You sold my company, he said, voice cracking. No, I sold my company. You sold yours for $120,000 and a cup of coffee. His face went blank. You planned this, he whispered. No, I said. I earned this. You planned to steal something from me. I just made sure you didn't get away with it. He clenched his fists. You ruined me. No, I said, you did that. I just made sure it counted. He didn't punch me, didn't yell. He just turned and walked away slower than he arrived, like a man carrying the weight of every bad choice he ever made. Lisa didn't call, she didn't email, but I got a letter handwritten, 4 pages, apologizing, begging, saying she missed me. Saying Jason wasn't who she thought he was, that he'd been different ever since the buyout, distant, moody, ashamed, that he barely talked anymore. She said she wanted to come home. I folded the letter neatly and burned it in the fireplace. The Drift Rock deal closed on a Tuesday, $16. 8 million wired, accounts cleared, contracts locked. I stayed on for the transition, but I didn't work late anymore. I didn't skip lunch. I didn't answer emails past 5 p.m. The first thing I bought was a cabin, not the one Lisa got in the divorce. A new one, bigger, higher up, real fireplace. Wraparound deck, space to breathe. The second thing I bought, a custom Harley, midnight black, chrome-lined engine that purred like a lion. Jason always wanted one, now I had it, and he was too broke to make rent. A few months later, I heard from a vendor in Spokane. Jason tried to launch a small firm, steel and rebar supply. Called it Legacy Frame Co., didn't last long. Vendors didn't trust him, clients avoided him, his name was poisoned. I didn't have to say a word, the industry took care of it. Turns out when you betray one man, you betray everyone who ever believed in you. I was sitting on the deck of my cabin one evening, watching the sun bleed into the trees when my son Thomas called. "Hey Dad," he said, "I got the internship." "Which one?" "Baker and Lowe, structural engineering. Starts in June." "That's incredible, son." "Yeah, I wanted to ask, can I stay with you this summer? Place is kind of halfway between my school and the site." I smiled, always. As the phone call ended, I stared out over the river. The breeze was cold, clean. The kind of air you only feel after surviving fire. I'd lost my marriage, lost my best friend, sold the company I spent half my life building, but I had peace and silence, and a name no one questioned. I hadn't just ruined their lives in one move. I'd made sure they could never rebuild. Summer arrived in a slow drift, longer days, cooler mornings, and the steady thrum of construction season humming in the distance. But I wasn't in it anymore. Not the way I used to be. My name was still on the steel beams, still on the trucks driving down the freeway, but it didn't bind me anymore. For the first time in decades, I could breathe. Thomas moved in mid-June, a duffel bag in one hand, a coffee in the other, tall like his mother, sharp like me. He wore his internship badge like it meant something, which it did. He'd earned it. We grilled burgers that night on the back deck. Talked about bridge load dynamics and steel fatigue like they were campfire stories. He asked about Drift Rock, about the sale, about how it felt. "Strange," I said, "but right. You ever think about starting another company?" I shook my head. "Sometimes you build a thing so well it doesn't need to be repeated. Sometimes it's better to walk away with everything intact, instead of rebuilding from ash." He nodded, didn't press. That's what I loved about him. He understood that some answers were final. Word around the industry was that Jason was broke and bitter. He tried to rebrand, tried to get on as a consultant with 2 rival firms. Both declined, quietly, respectfully, but firmly. His name was toxic now, not because I told anyone, but because word spreads. People talk. They saw what happened to Mercer Steel, how I bought him out for a fraction of his worth. They saw the quiet lawsuits I never had to file, the settlement clause that leaked just enough to make the rounds. He became a cautionary tale, not a villain, not even a threat, just a footnote. Lisa's life unraveled slower, more politely. She moved to a condo in Portland, tried to open an interior design consultancy. I heard about it through a mutual acquaintance, an old friend of hers from the PTA days. "She's adjusting," the woman said on the phone. "Thinner, quieter. Not herself, really. Maybe she finally met herself," I said. There was a pause. "You okay, Dave?" I looked out the window. Thomas was in the driveway polishing the Harley. His hands moved like mine used to, steady, deliberate, with respect for the machine. "Yeah," I said, "I'm more than okay." In late July, I got a letter, not handwritten this time, typed, formal, from Lisa's attorney. She was requesting a renegotiation of the divorce terms, claimed emotional distress, claimed she hadn't understood the prenup, claimed she'd been influenced by external manipulation, meaning Jason. My lawyer laughed when he read it. She thinks she can undo a signed clause. 10 months after the fact. She's desperate, I said. You want to respond, not legally. I sent Lisa a message that evening. Me, you signed it, you lived with him, you lied to both of us. The answer is no. She read it, never replied. The Drift Rock team promoted me in August, senior division strategist, not because I asked, but because I delivered. Their team said no one else could negotiate like I did. No one else had client loyalty like mine. They offered me a full retirement package if I stayed on through next spring. I accepted, because the best revenge isn't loud, it's control. Jason called me in September. I almost didn't answer, but I was watching football and the number caught me off guard. I put the call on speaker, let his voice echo through my quiet living room. Hey Dave, silence. I just wanted to say you win. I didn't respond, you took everything. My share, my name, my future. She left me last month, said I wasn't who she thought I was. Still, I didn't say a word. I get it now. Why you never forgave us. Why you went cold. I'd have done the same thing. I took a sip of my beer, then ended the call. That was the last time I heard from Jason Grant, the man I once called brother. The man who thought I was too focused to notice the knife sliding into my back. He was wrong. I noticed everything. I just waited until I could turn that knife into a pen and sign him out of my life. October came. The leaves burned red along the mountainside and the air bit harder than usual. I spent more time in the garage, working on the Harley, building a new workbench, tinkering with ideas. Thomas started talking about graduate school. He asked if I'd help him start his own firm someday. I looked at him carefully and said, "Only if you pick partners you trust with your life." He nodded slowly. "Lesson learned," he said, and I knew he meant it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it, if I regret blowing up 2 relationships I spent a lifetime building. I always tell them the same thing. I didn't blow anything up. I just let people show me who they were, and when they did, I made sure the fallout didn't land on me. Winter came early. The first snow fell in mid-November, blanketing the trees around the cabin in a thick hush that made everything feel sacred. I sat on the porch with a mug of black coffee and a wool blanket draped across my shoulders. It had been almost a year since the night I found Jason's jacket on my bed. 12 months of unraveling lies, signing papers, shifting power, and burning bridges I once thought were untouchable. And now there was just silence and space, and the freedom to think without anger in my chest. Drift Rock sent me their final year-end projections that week. Mercer Steel, now their fastest-growing division, had posted record numbers. Holloway alone had extended their contract for another 3 years. 2 new state highway projects were pending. The executive board wanted to fly me to their Denver HQ for a formal award. I declined. Sent a thank you note instead. Attached a photo of me and Thomas standing beside the Harley, both of us in matching riding jackets. That was my reward. That was the legacy I cared about. A week before Christmas, Lisa called, not a message, not a letter, a direct call. I almost didn't answer, but something in me said to pick up, not for her but for me. Her voice was quiet, fragile. "Hey, hi, I heard about the sale and Drift Rock. Congratulations." "Thank you." Silence. Then, I'm sorry. I waited, she continued. "I know that doesn't fix anything. I know I hurt you, and I hate what I did, not just the affair, the lying, the excuses, everything." Her voice cracked. I said nothing. "Jason's gone. He moved to Arizona, said he needed a clean start. We haven't talked in months." Still, I waited. "I thought I knew what I was doing," she said. "I thought I needed something different, but I didn't need different. I needed honest. And I destroyed the one person who ever gave me that." I finally spoke. "Lisa." "Yes, I'm not angry anymore." That surprised her. I heard it in the way she exhaled. "I'm not hurt, I'm not bitter. But I also don't want anything from the past back. Not the memories, not the what-ifs, not the apologies. I've moved on." She was quiet for a long time, then softly, "I'm glad you have. I hope someday I can too." I ended the call, felt nothing but peace. Christmas came and went. Thomas brought his girlfriend up to the cabin. They chopped firewood, helped cook, watched the snowfall like kids on a school break. I taught them how to set up the backup generator when the wind knocked out the power for 2 hours. We laughed. A lot. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I laughed without effort, without weight. On New Year's Eve, I stood outside under the stars. The sky was impossibly clear. The river below frozen solid, moonlight reflecting off it like glass. I could hear coyotes howling in the distance. Nothing else, just nature breathing. I lit a cigar, not because I needed one but because I earned it. I took a long drag, then exhaled slowly, watching the smoke drift into the dark. I thought about the year behind me, Lisa, Jason, the lies, the unraveling, the cold decisions. I thought about the man I was then, and the man I had to become to survive it, not cruel, not vindictive, just precise, disciplined, patient enough to watch betrayal unfold and calm enough to dismantle it one piece at a time. That was the revenge, not the yelling, not the courtroom. But the fact that I'm still standing, whole, and they're both shadows in my rear view. In March, Thomas graduated from his internship and got offered a full-time position. They wanted him to help design a new structural safety system for elevated roadways. He called it our kind of project. "You're gonna crush it," I told him. "You want to help consult?" I laughed. "Son, I already built something that'll last longer than steel." "What's that, you?" "Jason filed for bankruptcy in April. I heard through a vendor who used to work with us. Said Jason's attempt at a comeback had fallen apart when clients pulled out over integrity concerns. His name couldn't even get him warehouse space anymore." I didn't feel joy, didn't feel vindication, just a quiet kind of justice. Like the world had caught up to the man who'd once pretended to be my brother. As for Lisa, I haven't heard from her since the call, but I know she's still in Portland, still trying to reassemble something that no longer fits. Sometimes when I drive into town for groceries, I see couples holding hands in parking lots, laughing at gas stations, building lives together, and I don't feel bitter, I just feel lucky, because I made it through the fire, and I didn't come out burned, I came out clear. Last week, I rode the Harley to a bluff that overlooks the entire Columbia River. Just me, the bike, and the wind. I sat there until the sun started to fall, and I thought about all of it, all the years, all the betrayal, all the rebuilding. And I whispered something I hadn't said in over a year: thank you. Because without the betrayal, I'd still be building someone else's dreams, still trusting people who saw me as a backup plan, still bleeding for people who would never bleed for me. Now, I build for myself. And no one gets to take that from me again.